I still dream of mountains. 20 years after leaving Serbia, the peaks of my childhood rise up in my sleep, pulling me back to a past life. Last night I woke at 3 a.m., my bedroom in Boston transformed by moonlight, momentarily convinced I was back in my family's small stone house with frost on the windows. The past lives in us like another country, I tell my clients. You can leave a place, but the place never completely leaves you. My name is Mira. I'm 44 years old and work as a therapist in Boston, specializing in helping immigrants adjust to life in America. My own journey here began in a tiny mountain village in Serbia, 7,000 kilometers, and a lifetime away from the office where I now sit. I grew up in a place where time moved slowly. Our village clung to the mountainside like snow on pine branches. My father worked at the local sawmill, and my mother taught at the one-room schoolhouse that served our community. Books were my escape, windows to worlds beyond our isolated existence. Mira lives with her head in the clouds, my father would say, half proud, half worried. Always dreaming of what's over the next ridge. He wasn't wrong. While other children played in the forest or helped with chores, I'd sneak away to read under my favorite oak tree. Psychology books fascinated me most, these glimpses into human minds and hearts. I wanted to understand why people did what they did, thought what they thought. When I was 16, war tore through our region. I won't detail those years. Some wounds need privacy to heal. What matters is that by 22, I had made it to Belgrade with my psychology degree and a burning desire to escape a country that felt like a prison of painful memories. You can't run from who you are, my mother said when I told her I'd applied to graduate programs in America. I'm not running, I replied. I'm walking towards something new. She smiled sadly, knowing the partial truth in both our words. I arrived at Boston Logan Airport in January 2001 with $743 in cash, one suitcase, and acceptance to a master's program I could barely afford. The cold hit me like a slap when I walked outside, not the clean, crisp cold of my mountains, but a wet, bone-deep chill that made me question everything. My first apartment was a shared basement unit in Allston with 3 other students. The rent was $450 per month, stretching my small scholarship and part-time cafeteria job to breaking point. I slept on a mattress on the floor and hung a map of Boston on the wall, marking places I needed to know with red pins. My accent marked me as foreign everywhere I went. Where are you from? Became the question I dreaded most. Serbia. Is that in Russia? No, it's in the Balkans. Blank stares. Near Croatia. Bosnia. Recognition then, but often the wrong kind, of war, of atrocities on the news. I learned to say simply, Eastern Europe, and change the subject. Graduate school nearly broke me. Not the academics, those I handled well, but the cultural isolation. American students formed quick friendships, sharing references and jokes I couldn't understand. They talked about TV shows I'd never seen, childhood games I'd never played, and used slang that left me nodding and smiling while understanding nothing. One night, after a particularly lonely day of classes, I sat on the floor of my room and cried until my roommate knocked on the door. You okay in there? I wasn't. I wanted to go home. But home no longer existed as I remembered it. I'm fine, I called back. Just watching a sad movie. My turning point came during my internship at a community mental health center in East Boston. I was assigned to shadow a therapist working with immigrants and refugees. On my first day, a woman from El Salvador sat across from us, describing panic attacks that began after she witnessed a shooting in her neighborhood. I know I'm safe here, she said in Spanish, which the therapist translated for me. But my body doesn't believe it. I recognized something in her eyes, the same haunted look I'd seen in my own mirror. When she left, I asked the supervising therapist if I could work specifically with immigrant cases. You'd be good at that, she said. You understand the journey. She was right. I understood the strange limbo of being physically present in America while emotionally straddling 2 worlds. I knew what it meant to translate not just language but entire cultural concepts, to explain yourself constantly, to feel both grateful for safety and grieving for what you left behind. I finished my master's, then my clinical licensing requirements. I worked 3 jobs to save $15,000 for a small private practice focusing on immigrant mental health. My tiny office had just enough room for 2 chairs, a small desk, and shelves lined with books in multiple languages. "I don't want therapy," a Russian engineer told me during our first session. "My wife thinks I need help, but I'm fine." He'd been in America 8 months and couldn't find work in his field. Each night, he drank vodka and watched Russian news online. "Tell me about your home," I said instead of challenging him directly. For the next hour, he described his childhood in Siberia, his university in Moscow, the respect he'd carried in his community. "Here, I am nothing," he said finally. "A middle-aged man who bags groceries and can't help his children with English homework." "You're not nothing," I told him. "You're in translation." He looked up, confused. Like a book being translated from one language to another. During translation, the book isn't lost, it's just between forms. That's where you are right now. Between forms. He came back the next week, and the week after that. 6 months later, he'd found work teaching at a community college and had made friends with neighbors who invited his family for Thanksgiving. Over 15 years, I've worked with hundreds of clients from 47 different countries. Each carries unique circumstances, but I've noticed common threads in our shared immigrant experience, the grief that comes with leaving behind not just people but places, smells, foods, and ways of seeing the world. The exhaustion of constantly translating, not just words but social cues, cultural references, implicit rules. The identity confusion when you're no longer who you were but not yet fully who you'll become. The guilt toward those left behind, mixed with guilt when you find happiness in your new country. A Syrian doctor who fled with her children after her husband was killed told me, "I feel like a ghost. Half of me died back home." "You're not a ghost," I said. "You're a bridge." She looked at me, puzzled. "Your children will walk across you to reach their American lives. It will hurt sometimes to be walked upon. But without you, they couldn't cross." She started to cry, then nodded. "A bridge. I can be that." I've seen incredible resilience, a Somali man who worked as a janitor by day and Uber driver by night to put his daughters through college, a Venezuelan woman who learned English watching children's shows with her son, then became a bilingual teacher, an elderly Japanese gentleman who, at 72, opened a small restaurant serving his mother's recipes. I've also seen devastating losses, suicides, addictions, families torn apart by the pressures of adaptation, bright minds dimmed by despair when credentials earned abroad mean nothing here. My work isn't always successful. Some wounds run too deep. Some barriers stand too high. But often enough, I witness the moment when someone's eyes shift from despair to possibility, when they realize they can carry their past with them without being crushed by its weight. Last year, after obtaining my citizenship, I visited Serbia for the first time since leaving. My parents are gone now, but my cousin still lives in our region. I hiked to my childhood oak tree and sat beneath its branches, now thicker and more gnarled than in my memory. The mountains hadn't changed, but I had. I found I could look at them now without pain overshadowing their beauty. I could feel connection without being consumed by what was lost. Back in my Boston office, I keep a small jar of soil from that mountain. Sometimes, when a session is particularly difficult, I hold it in my palm, drawing strength from its cool weight. "Do you ever regret coming here?" clients often ask me. No, I tell them truthfully. But I've stopped trying to choose between my two worlds. I carry both within me. This is what I help others discover, that integration doesn't mean erasing your past or rejecting your roots. It means building an internal bridge between who you were and who you're becoming. If you're reading this and feel caught between worlds, know that you're not alone. Millions of us live in this in-between space, creating new maps for territories no single culture prepared us to navigate. Your accent, your memories, your different way of seeing, these aren't obstacles to overcome. They're gifts you bring to a world that needs multiple perspectives. The journey isn't about leaving yourself behind to become American. It's about weaving your past into your present to create something uniquely yours. The mountains of your past will always live within you. Let them give you height, not hold you down.